A 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10. That's what IGN gave this episode. You know, my biggest mistake is reviewing each episode as we go, and I gave the second episode a 9 when I realized it's not. And pretty much everything that came after episode 2 kind of just made everything else worse. Actually, it didn't, because episode 2 and episode 1 were really isolated on Stephen Grant and the whole Mark Spector situation. And every time they, you know, focused on the plot, which is what Moon Knight's about, it just became generic superhero nonsense. But hey, I'm happy to report today's episode, even though we said it last time, but this time, like, throughout, it's the first episode since episode 2 and 1 where the whole thing was great. But the thing is, it's probably the best episode so far. It's the penultimate episode, which we haven't had in the last few MCU shows, because usually around 5 we know exactly that this might not end the way you think. No, I'm not quoting Luke Skywalker from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, but in this episode, we have no idea really what's going to happen going into the last one, and that's something that should be a big positive here from any Marvel viewer. I think they're going to be happy knowing that it's not going to just be the crazy superhero battle before, and then they're going to reveal one more huge villain like they did with Hawkeye, and it just leads to some battle which is pretty non-existent after a month from watching it. But this time, they took it to the next level. All the crazy hospital hallucinations and literally everything about the character for Steven and Mark, it's just gone to the next level now. We don't, like, at the beginning, at the first half of this episode, we don't even know what exactly is going on to both of them. And then we find out all these crazy things we'll get into once we talk about the plot. But overall, like, there's barely anything wrong with this. And if they take another step in this direction for episode 6, I think we're, without a doubt, going to have the best Marvel show. Easy.
Oh yeah. I think this is going to be the best, probably the first show to at least hit a 7 out of 10 for me, overall. Maybe an 8, you never know. Probably not. I think it's too late for an 8. Unless the last season's like, I don't know, last episode's like Ozymandias from Breaking Bad or something. But that's not going to happen. But, okay, so I guess let's just get right into it. So, the last episode ended with this hippo god. It was like, hi. And then this episode starts with the hippo god. And if you remember when we were watching it, I thought the CGI looked really bad. But then it kind of grew on me. I think the reason why I kind of thought it was bad is because it looked extremely cartoonish. Like, at least the way it was. Like, you know, for a show that's so gritty and stuff, like, it just felt so out of place. It's like if Tom and Jerry showed up in the Batman.
Yeah,
Except probably not that bad.
I didn't think it was that far over the top, but it might have something to do with the perception that you would never see a walking, talking hippo in a psychiatric hospital, so maybe that was out of place in the first hand. But yeah, I mean, the effects were pretty good, especially when they did the ship in the sand stuff, and I actually liked the zombies, and yeah, no issues with the log from the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was up with the really bad CGI in the first episode, but here's the thing, the visual effects are good, but this is not Disney good. This is not $25 million good. Do you know each Marvel episode consistently has been $25 million per episode? Does that look like a $25 million episode for you? No. For me, no.
Yeah, but then again, honestly, you can have the worst VFX, and if the story is this good, I don't really care, honestly.
Yeah,
that's just the main thing at this point. I'd rather focus on what's good about the episode rather than just nitpicking on the CGI, because I don't even see a point right now. Like, the main issue throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, TV and film, is definitely not the CGI that needs to be improved. It's just the story and the decision making behind it. So I think we're seeing a significant improvement here. And there's things that we're actually going to go back and remember rather than forget, like Hawkeye especially.
Yeah, this show is actually challenging the audience. Like, I think the fact that it's been this long, we're like, what? Episode 5, we got 1 episode left. And we still have no idea exactly fully what's happening with, like, the whole Mark and Steven situation is honestly something that's worth commending, really. Yeah, and that's fine. And I do understand what you're saying. I do agree with what you're saying, that maybe we shouldn't focus on the VFX so much. But, you know, it's Marvel. Like, you know, it's their bread and butter to make these films look, or shows look amazing. But, you know, the reason why I'm saying that is like, you know, if you look at the Batman Begins or the Dark Knight, we all know the hand-to-hand combat is pretty bad, but the story is just so good that we don't really focus on that. Here, in this Moon Knight, like, I think the story, except for, like, the whole, like, you know, the main story, where, like, the main quest, where, like, you know, the whole your generic superhero story where they're trying to stop some world-ending threat. Other than that, like, the whole character exploration part of this show about Stephen Grant and Mark figuring stuff out, that's honestly genuinely the most interesting part of the show, and I wish the whole show was about it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the best part. Also, to be fair to the MCU on the visual effects, like Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy, they're used way less CGI than like any game would, so I have to give it a little
Yeah, I know, that's why I wasn't talking about the VFX, I was talking about the hand-to-hand fight, which makes more sense for that to have, like, well done, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so what happens is, so this whole asylum thing is like this gateway to the afterlife, and the hippo god is revealed to be Harwat. How do you say her name? Do you remember? Oh, Tarwat. Okay, yeah. So it's some Egyptian god, and she's like a gatekeeper, or like a person who sends you to hell or heaven. And and it's basically based on Ahmed's scale thing, where like she takes your heart out and solidifies it into like glass or something, and then she weighs it in the scale. And if the feather and the weight of your heart balances, then you go to heaven. If you don't, then you get thrown in like sand and you freeze to death. That's basically what it is. And I thought that was really cool. I think the inclusion and the sort of the delving into the Egyptian mythology stuff is like the most interesting here, because like everything about the afterlife is really cool. The visual effects, the visuals that we see, like with the purple sky and this giant boat that's like swimming through a sand. You know what it reminded me of? You remember in Soul, when they were in the Soul world, and like there was that one guy who would like pirate people around?
Yeah, Grant Norton.
Grant Norton, yeah. And you know, like literally it was like a soul, and everybody was on the soul, and they were like this mindless soul thing. Right. Except in this, those mindless souls are dead people. You know?
And a lot scarier.
Oh yeah, a lot scarier. And also, this is I'm glad the Marvel's doing this. Like Mark Spector has done some screwed up shit. He's murdered a lot of people, and the fact that they're mentioning this and like embracing it is cool. Because if you look at the Avengers, they brutally murder people. Like they make it pretty evident. If you remember in Age of Ultron, when they're attacking that Hydra facility, every Hydra soldier there got brutally murdered, except there was no blood or like no emphasis on it. And they were just kind of mindless balloon people that got swung around. But here, like, we're actually delving into it, which is actually really cool, because they make all their characters like squeaky clean and stuff, you know? And that was cool. But I think by far the best part of this episode is how we finally get some answers about Mark and why Steven exists. Would you like to tell us what the big twist is, Max?
It's basically just a figment of his imagination. I thought it was pretty cool how he basically just existed from a random movie poster in his room. So that's what I expect in a traumatic situation like that, for him to just take something close to him and then build his entire persona off of that. That was pretty neat, rather than just have some like random imaginary friend out of nowhere. It had a small enough connection to make it believable, and I thought they pretty much nailed it on the head with that.
I was really surprised how dark it was. So essentially, the reason why he creates Steven, and the fact that it gets to the point where he literally can't control it, and it's literally become a part of him, is because he has an extremely traumatic past, and he's screwed up in the head, like severely screwed up in the head. So we learn his backstory. So basically, for the whole reason why we're going into and finding answers this time around for their backstory, for Mark's backstory and Steven's backstory, is that in order for the scales to come to balance, instead of just not being in balance the whole time, they need to let out the truth and like figure things out. Basically, it's kind of vague, but it's a little bit supposed to be a little more profound, a little bit more personal. So you kind of just are given something and you just got to figure something out, sort of. When you know something's like kind of hollow and you don't know, something's missing basically, and both of them are trying to find it. And basically what happens is Mark had a younger brother who drowned, and his mom blames him for it, and she abuses him, beats him up with a belt, and it gets to the point where he just straight up creates this persona where Stephen Grant, is like a completely different guy who has a British accent, and the whole reason why he creates him is because he wants his life to feel like everything's alright, even though it's completely in shambles. Like the moment where like his mom bursts into the door and you hear her beat him with the belt, that was kind of like, I was surprised by that.
It's definitely very dark and rough, and I really like how Stephen Grant is created not as an entirely imaginary friend, and he has like a lot of personality traits that are similar. And obviously, he looks exactly the same as a twin. And I think it's cool that they showed us a brief glimpse of that fictional movie that Stephen Grant was in, the Dr. Stephen Grant, who it's based off of. And I guess he just got that from watching a movie character, and it literally became this new character who completely got engrossed in his personality, which is really cool, because I would say probably a lot of kids throughout the world in history have gone through something traumatic and probably took something straight out of a movie. And since movies are, especially in that time, it looked like to be an older movie, picture perfect, that's exactly what you're going to want to have in your life. And I thought the way they did that was just really creative. I was not expecting that out of left field.
That's right, because like he's like 10 years old, so for him to go through something like that where his literal mother blames him for the death of his little brother is terrifying, and the fact that they did that is cool. We still haven't gotten to that part where Moon Knight wails down on a guy, like Kevin Feige said. So, like that very dark moment.
I mean, we didn't even see Moon Knight at all, except for the suit. There's barely been any fighting. I was expecting there to be at least some big fight or a hint of leading up to a final fight with Arthur Harrow. But no, none of that yet. I assume that's going to be coming in the 6th. But
I assume they're going to cram it all into the 6th episode. That's what they're going to do. If the last episode at least is not more than an hour, I'm going to be very concerned. Yeah, and we also get to see, like I guessed, how he became Moon Knight, and it was kind of, it's what we expected, but I wish it was a little bit more, more than just, it kind of treated like we already know who this character is, and he's existed before, and like they hadn't shown his true backstory, this origin story, until now, which is weird. And I don't know why they did that. Maybe it was like some weird creative decision, but it didn't come across very well to me. But it's alright. He basically is like near death, and they show that he's been betrayed, and all those archaeologists are dead, including Layla's father, who, by the way, Layla's not in this episode at all. And what happened is that all the archaeologists dead, and he's like in Amit's temple, and then Amit starts speaking to him, and then he gets the Moon Knight suit, which is what we expected. And one more thing that I really have to say is Oscar Isaac was incredible in this episode. Like his acting, I think like this is probably the strongest character like acting of a superhero in the MCU.
I said this from day one of the first video that I knew the acting, just based off those two alone, Ethan and Oscar, was going to be top tier. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind about that. And I'm glad that they played both of the characters to the actor's strengths very well.
Yeah, like Oscar Isaac and like Ethan Hawke feels fully engrossed with their characters, and to a more extent than most actors that play like, Spider-Man or Iron Man and stuff. So I feel like, this genuinely is a character study, like they're saying, and the character study parts are the more interesting parts for me, and everything else is just whatever, trash, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, and I honestly think that even if we get a little bit of a below average episode for the 6th one, as long as it's not an absolute terrible last episode, I probably still am going to rate it the highest out of all the shows. I'm happy about that, because this one I was more interested about this character than the rest of them because obviously we know about Falcon, we know about Wanda, we know about Hawkeye, we know about Loki from all the MCU stuff. It's cool to see that the new character is getting this much attention, which a lot of people like me who only know MCU stuff from the movies and games, not so much on the comics, we got introduced to a new character. So I thought, yeah, make it interesting, and that's what they're doing so far. And I'm just optimistic, like I said in the last one. I think 6 is going to be good.
I think 6 will be, I don't think it'll be bad. I think it'll be alright, and then we're going to get some post-credit scene. There was no post-credit scene in this episode, which I was really surprised by, because usually I think like second to last episode, maybe even third to last episode, because I remember Falcon and the Winter Soldier had quite a lot of like end credits to the point where I missed some of them, and then I went back and got to them. So there's no thing. So that it makes sense that they are keeping their word, that they're really making this one feel self-contained from the rest of the MCU. And there's honestly really no point to have a post-credit scene until like the show ends, really. And we also get another hint that Arthur Harrow has probably revived Amit by now, because they're in the afterlife and there's a bunch of people that are falling to their deaths.
Yeah, they were saying, the Egyptian goddess mentioned that the souls were not ready to be judged yet and they're falling to the sky. So that was pretty cool.
That was cool. So it was weird that we didn't get to see that. And how does the show end, Max? Do you remember? Wow, oh yeah, he's in the cornfield.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh yes, okay. So Steven dies. Pretty much.
Over that very quickly. Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we forgot about that.
I mean, there's just so much fun. It shows you in this episode, like the amount of things that happen, like going from episode 1 to episode 5. It's pretty incredible how much content they managed to pack in, and it doesn't feel that convoluted, which is another positive.
It feels like a lot is going on with this whole like mind mess weird thing that Steven and Mark are going through than the actual plot with Amit and stuff. That part is just so whatever and just so bland compared to everything else. But so basically how they've solved the whole imbalanced scale problem is that Hippo Goddess is like, hey, this balance is not, this scale is not balanced, so you're gonna die now. And a bunch of spirits jump on the deck of the boat, and they start fighting. And it gets to the point where, like, I think Mark is being held down, and then Steven tries to go save him, but they both fall over. But that bad spirit thing falls over, and as well as Steven. And Mark stays on the deck, and then Steven solidifies into stone, basically dying, which makes his scale balance. And then he goes into the afterlife. He's in a cornfield, like it's Interstellar or something.
Right, yeah. Honestly, that final shot is the most beautiful shot I've seen, especially out of the shows that MCU has ever produced. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was a cool
Days of Heaven vibes there.
Yeah, it was a cool shot. Even though I'm pretty sure it took place in a studio, because it was like ridiculously overlit. And also, I noticed there was a lot of really bad green screen moments in this show too. But you know, that's me. Yeah, I care a lot about VFX, and you don't.
Yeah.
But it's Marvel.
I don't think it's that bad, personally.
It's not bad. It's noticeable. It's really noticeable, and it's really because like, whatever. I don't even want to talk about this. We'll see. But the thing is, like, this is the crazy thing is, like, if the visual effects were really bad in the first episode, and they just keep getting progressively better and better, and they are better in the parts where the VFX are actually a lot more complex than a car chase or like a bunch of logs falling down. So it's weird. But yeah, I thought this is the best episode. I don't know what I was saying last time. I don't think that was the best episode. The reason why I said that was one of the best episodes was because of the ending. But no, overall, that one's not the best episode. It's probably the 4th best episode. But this one is probably number 1. This was the one was just full on focused on Mark and Steven, and I thought it was emotional, and I thought it worked, and Oscar Isaac's acting was great, and I'm hopeful that at least we'll get a decent ending. in the finale. Any final thoughts from you?
Agreed, yeah. This is definitely the best one. I still think that the last episode, because of the latter half, and now that we know a bit more about it, is still the best episode other than this one. So
you feel that way?
Keeping it on that, yeah.
Okay.
I do think.
Because I feel like
second half saved it.
I think the second half did save it, and I do think the second half of that is better than anything the first 2 episodes. But I feel like the first 2 episodes was consistently good overall for its entirety. Because like the first half of the last episode, it's a huge chunk that was just extremely boring.
Yeah, I'll take the risk and get the reward over the safe area. So I'm actually glad that, and I will value that more than just 2 consistently good episodes throughout. So I'm sticking with my opinion on that. But overall, yeah, I think episode 6 will be a fun, if not at least entertaining.
I don't want another Marvel show to end in the same poor way, and I don't want to go ballistic, but we'll see. I kind of want to go ballistic, but I was like kind of wanting this episode to be bad so we can have an entertaining episode, but it wasn't. It was a good episode, so I guess that's a win-win, you know?
I am hoping for the best, and I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the best, or am I?
Get something good.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we can both agree that this will probably be the best MCU show.
Most.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say episode. Yes, the show, I'm also 100% sure on that.
Yeah.
Unless they absolutely do Season 8 Game of Thrones and just plunge this one into the darkness, which is pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's all from us. We'll see you on the finale discussion tomorrow. Are you excited for next episode?
Indeed.
All right. Okay. Thanks for watching, and subscribe and like and comment, and let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments. Thank you. Bye.